All right, y'all. So Ecclesiastes 5 through 10. A quick recap of 1 through 4. This is the chart that we covered in class, but I just wanted to remind you that 1 through 4 is really Koheleth beginning his search for meaning, right? He's trying to find what will satisfy the missing piece in the human soul, the missing piece that we all feel, but we don't necessarily know what will fill it. And he went everywhere. He looked to see if wisdom and intellect would satisfy it. Came up and said Hevel. He looked at whether, human life would satisfy it. Notice that the earth keeps going and we don't. Pleasure, money, nothing was really satisfying. And I noticed in a couple of y'all's annotations, I want you to avoid saying things like, oh, but God does. Because he's not really saying those things yet. He's hinted at it a little bit. And we'll talk about that in the last video. But he's hinted at it just a little bit. But he continues to say, nothing under the sun is providing satisfaction. Nothing's giving me meaning. And this is something I feel deeply, and I know y'all have felt deeply at some point, right? That the things you do might not actually be satisfying you like you think they are. So anyway, at this point, he has searched in all of these different areas. And he's come to the conclusion that it's all meaningless. It's all Hevel. It will not satisfy. So then we move on to Ecclesiastes 5 through 10. And the best way to explain 5 through 10 is it's just him putting down some thoughts, right? He's going, all right, none of this is really going to satisfy me. So in the meantime, here are some things we can think about, right? It's almost like, okay, I know I'm not going to win, but in the meantime, I can at least do this to make it better. And so 5 through 10 is all over the place, right? As you guys already know, or take it back, as you're about to find out. It's all over the place. But what I want you to do as you read 5 through 10 is to really look and annotate for a couple main themes. And I'll point these out in this video. So first off, one of the things that he says, all right, nothing's going to satisfy. But as we go through this life under the sun, don't be surprised when you see injustice. And this could not be more applicable for 2020, right? He says, when you look at your world, don't be surprised when you see corruption and when you see injustice, right? It will always be there. It will always be there. We shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden our world is so unjust. That's not the case, right? It's always been unjust. It's never been, at least, after Eden, it's never been what it ought to be. There's a couple verses that really point this out, and you'll see a lot more than just these. Ecclesiastes 5:8 says, if you see in a province, that means like in an area, the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice, do not be amazed at the matter, right? Don't be surprised. 7:15, there is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his evil doing. Beautiful verse, right? Basically saying what you're going to see in the world all the time is that people who are evil and do the wrong thing, everything's going to work out for them, right? The people that are always cheating are going to end up getting into Yale, right? You who have been working your hardest, right, been honest, never cheated, might get rejected at a college. And you're like, that's not just, right? I'm not getting what I deserve. And it's like what your parents say, right? Life's not fair. At least my parents used to say that, right? Life's not fair. He's getting this exact thing. Don't be surprised when you see that a righteous man dies, right? That good people die. And that someone who is not a good person, right, has this incredible life. Don't be surprised at injustice. And then in 8:14, he says, there are righteous people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked, right? So it happens to them as if they were doing wicked deeds. And there are wicked people to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous, right? It's not fair. It's just not fair. And he basically says, so much of life is meaningless from his experiment so far, because it's not like you can just act a certain way and certain things will happen to you, right? It's just kind of random, it seems like. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't have control. And so he, again, comes to the conclusion of, okay, this isn't satisfying me. This isn't providing meaning because I don't control it, right? It seems like it's all by chance. So sort of his first takeaway is that don't be surprised at injustice. He then continues down a path that we've already seen him go down, right? Which is that death comes for all. Regardless of whether you're a righteous man or a wicked man. So again, it's that injustice. Everyone one day will die. Verse 5:15. As he came, just speaking of like a person, as he came from his mother's womb, so shall he go again, naked as he came. Right? You were born naked, you're going to be buried naked, right? Naked as you came. You cannot escape that fate. Chapter 8, verse 8, no man has power to retain the spirit or power over the day of death, right? You are not control over the day of death. It happens to us all. Chapter 9, verse 3, this is an evil that is done under the sun. The same event happens to us all, right? We are hevel, we are dust, right? I love that picture of the person just evaporating in the wind. We don't necessarily feel that right now because we, and I include myself in this, we're young, we're relatively healthy. I don't always think that I'm going to die. Koheleth is really experiencing just kind of the frustration, right? That, okay, it doesn't matter if I am just or unjust, righteous or not righteous, because I'm going to go to the same place as the unrighteous man, right? That death happens for all. So again, kind of coming back to the idea of hevel, I'm not finding satisfaction under the sun. That's that key phrase, under the sun. He does leave us with a little bit of wisdom, I think, here, which is to respect the fact that there are things we don't know. This is just a really powerful statement when I think about my own life. Respect the mystery, right? So much of life is mysterious. So much of life cannot be explained. If you try and prove so much of life, you will end up short. And I think he leaves us with a good bit of wisdom here when he says in chapters, throughout actually all of Ecclesiastes, he continues to say things like, there are certain things that we don't know the answer to, and that's okay. Right? That we don't necessarily have the answers to why bad things happen to good people. We don't have the answers to why death comes for all. We don't fully understand it, right? We get it. We have like easy answers that people will say, but we don't necessarily get it. And he says, yes, that's normal, right? It's normal that you don't fully understand everything. In chapter 7, 23 and 24, Koheleth says, I said I will be wise, but it was far from me. That which has been is far off and deep, very deep. Who can find it out? Right? He's like the truth, the full truth. Think about allegory of the cave, escaping the cave. The full light. We can't fully discover it, right? We can get glimpses. We can get bits and pieces on this journey towards truth, but we cannot fully find the answers. He says again in chapter 8, verse 17, man cannot find out the work that is done under heaven. However much man may toil in his seeking, he will not find it out, right? We cannot find out all of the answers. And then one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Ecclesiastes 3:11. It says, God has placed eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. Right? It's like we have eternity in our hearts, right? We know eternity somewhere, but we cannot fathom it, right? Our brains we have those little caterpillar brains that can't wrap around a butterfly reality, right? And so one of the things he leaves us with says, do not be surprised at injustice. Do not be surprised that death comes for everyone. And in the meantime, respect the fact that you don't know everything. Respect the mystery. Respect that there is knowledge higher and greater than you, right? And a lot of people will say, well, there's not. there's not knowledge higher and greater than me. Takes a lot of arrogance to say that, right? It takes a lot of arrogance to say that. And he's getting at something here when he says, respect the fact that there are things greater than you, maybe a person greater than you. But he hasn't really touched on that yet. And then lastly, what you'll notice in these chapters are that he contradicts himself a lot. He'll say, sometimes one thing, sometimes the other. And I hope you're noticing these contradictions, but I want you to see that both of them are true under the sun, right? So in our day-to-day life, he'll say it's better to be alive, and then later on, he'll say it's better to be dead than to be alive. He'll say it's better to be wise, but he'll actually say, hey, it might be better to be a fool and just have fun, right? It's better to speak out and to speak wisdom. And then later he'll say it's better to be silent, not say anything. And then he'll say it's better to seek out truth, right? To seek out an understanding of the mystery. Then he'll say, you know what? No, it's not. It's better to be content, to stop seeking and just to rest. And so you should be like, what is he even saying, right? He's all over the place. But what I want you to see is that both of these are true in certain aspects, right? If you think about your own life, there are times when I'm like, it's definitely better to speak right now than to be silent, right? There are also times in life where it is much better to be silent than to speak. There's so many times in life where you should seek truth relentlessly, right? There are also times in life where you should be able just to sit back on your rocking chair and say, God, I don't understand everything, and be content with that, right? There's times where you feel like, I wish I were dead, right? That's dark, but it's true. There are times where people feel like, I wish I was dead. And there are times when you say, thank God I'm alive, right? And both of those are true. And so, especially in chapters 5 through 10, you'll see him going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I want you to see, that both of these things can be true and are true in a certain instance, right? In a certain aspect. So, again, just quick summary. Ecclesiastes 5 through 10. Koheleth has come to the conclusion that things are hevel, that he cannot find satisfaction. He cannot find that missing piece under the sun, right? The world that we can see, that we can understand. And he's like, but in the meantime, here are some things to think about. Don't be surprised at injustice. Death will happen to everyone. Respect that you don't necessarily know everything, right? That the truth is very deep, that there are things above us that we don't fully understand. And then in the meantime, there are certain ways to live, right? And it all kind of goes back to Ecclesiastes 3, which talks about time, right? There's a time for speaking and a time for silence. There's a time for seeking and a time for contentment, and learning how to kind of live in that tension. Again, hear me when I say this. I think the end of Ecclesiastes actually gives us the meaning for life, the purpose for life. I've seen in y'all's annotations, some of y'all said things like, wait, how is this in the Bible, right? This does not make sense that he's saying life is meaningless. You're right. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I thought my life was meaningless. I wouldn't be spending my time teaching if I thought my life was meaningless, right? I think there is meaning. I think there is purpose. But what Koheleth is doing right now is he's basically checking off all his attempts, right? Will this give me purpose? Nope. Will this give me purpose? Nope. Will this give me purpose? Nope. Right? And he's proceeding until we get to the end of the chapter where he's going to say, like, hey, here is where I find, or here is where we ought to find meaning. And it's a little bit more than just like God, right? As I'm sure you guys are expecting, right? It's a little bit more than that. So, all right, you guys will go read 5 through 10. You'll submit your annotations to me, and have a beautiful, beautiful day.